when you go into a final, you want to select your best fit available players, and that's what we did.
And at fly-off, did you just run out of options?
No.
How do you feel about France? I mean, obviously it's been a long time at test level, so...
Yeah, but I mean, he's played for the Cheetahs in the Currie Cup, played fly-off for them, and he's obviously trained at fly-off a lot for us. The same with Faf, you know, who's covering fly-off, and I guess that's pretty much if you lose a couple of fly-offs, that's where you sit in terms of a team, but we're lucky, you know. I mean, Damian Willemse was the same as Frans Steyn, you know. If you think Damian Willemse can cover fly off for us, he covered for us centre, he covered for us fullback. So I think France covers the same positions, just maybe with 10 years more experience than Damian Willemse.
Jacques, you probably shut this question down, and I don't blame you if you do. But just given that you've got so few fly halves and you've gone through the whole thing, and we all know the Elton situation and the stuff around that. But given that it probably didn't have anything to do with rugby and so forth, was there no temptation, because I mean he's got 50 test caps, was there no temptation to bring him back?
Elton.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, listen, how can I say, it would have been nice, but for us, how can I say, with all mental health issues and mental health being such a big thing and all the external pressures that on him, I think from a human side, it would have been unfair, to get a guy back. Obviously, there would be a lot of external pressure on him, and for us, the person comes first. So yeah, it would have been lovely, but unfortunately, like I say, I think it will be unfair on him. So from us, a human side comes first. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Jacques, one of the things that when you look at the fly-off situation, there were a number of young fly-offs that your Jordan Hendrickses that didn't go to your alignment camps. Do you feel that maybe you could have erred in that regard, where you could have given an opportunity so that when a situation like this comes, you are then able to give those younger fly-offs a chance? Because as much as Frans Steyn's experience, at his age, you don't foresee him playing past the World Cup next year.
I think if you go that route, you will probably go 5 specialist fly-offs, and you'll never use 5 specialist fly-offs. I think if you go to a World Cup, you probably can take 2 specialist fly-off, and then your next backups within the squad will be guys that cover there for you. I think all teams are make up like that. If we had gone with 5 specialist fly-offs, even to alignment camp, if you think now the time and effort we put into a player, let's say you've got 8 hours and you've got 8 fly-offs there, you can only put 1 hour per fly-off, where if you have 2 there or 3 there, you can almost put 3 hours per fly-off in, if you understand what. So it dilutes your contact time with a specialist position, and there's so much detail that goes in. You can, but I think you're probably not going to use them. Yeah.
On that, Jacques, you have what you call, I think you still have the pony players, and some of those guys are pony players.
Yep.
I'm assuming that those guys, like the Cape Ball Hunters, I mean, I'm assuming he still is in bowling. I mean, that you do get to speak to them sometime during the year when you're not camping.
Yes, and listen, the young guys. I mean, there's a bunch of young guys that now, with the starting of the URC, like we saw on the weekend, that have the opportunity, and even we forget about a guy like Johan. Johan is just coming back from injury, so he was always our 3rd specialist, but unfortunately he's also coming back from injury. But then there's Jordan. There's too many. I mean, you can, in the URC alone, there's 4 that you can mention. Marnie, you can mention a lot. Cade. But yeah, there's a bunch of nice, exciting fly-offs coming through, and definitely if we have continuous injuries in that position then we won't. I don't think we a management team or a team that are nervous to give young players the opportunity. If you think we don't mind giving a guy like Kane and Moody at 19 opportunity. If you're good enough, you're good enough,
What's the and how much progress have you kept on Johan Vosen's pro recovery? We spoke to Jake last week, and he says it's just a matter of when he needs to play him and also where, because he said one of the games where he's not keen on risking him is Glasgow because of that 4G pitch, which is where he got injured last year.
Yeah, no, listen, it is, we obviously follow their rehab through our medical side, but I mean, we won't prescribe when and how and where Jake must play him. That's completely up to the franchise and the franchise coaches.
Jacques, just on Damien, I mean, he's not available now, obviously, for reasons we know. How satisfied were you with his progress? And you mentioned Johan as the third choice, and we don't know what's happening with Elton. Are you sort of now in a position where you're sort of confident where, if you had to, Damien sort of stops being a utility back and sort of becomes a fly half again?
Yeah, I think when we started, if you guys think way back in against Wales in Pretoria, I mean there was a lot of question marks and about only 2 fly-offs, usual backup fly-offs, and there we are now. And then Damien stood up in that first test against Wales, where he played fly-off the second half, and now he started 2 games at fly-off, and he's really come on nicely, you know. And again, I'm saying. One mustn't forget, I think Frans Steyn is Damian Willemse, just with 70 test caps more and 10 years of experience more, you know.
Jacques, back to Saturday's game, how do you avoid that 30-minute period in that second half where the team built an advantage, but through a number of things that happened in the game, you found yourselves only trailing by 2 points? So in this particular game where you need to look at what's going to happen in Eden Park in the morning, and also what you guys need to do on Saturday, how do you avoid that sleep session, if you can call it?
Yeah, I don't want to be disrespectful to Argentina. I don't think it's a sleep session. Don't think it was us. I think they were excellent. You know, they came out. There was a try disallowed at the end. They came out 22-6. And they're passionate people, you know. They're a passionate team, and they came out all guns blazing. And obviously, the reason why it got to a stage where it was 22-20 was because we made mistakes, and we made mistakes because they put us under pressure. So no, listen, I'm almost taking my hat off for our players staying calm, because you can easily get derailed by that pressure. But I thought we stayed calm in the back end of that game with 14 minutes to go, and to then go out and score 2 tries and get the bonus point try. That I thought that was excellent from our team. But no, listen, Argentina, it will be the same thing. Again, it's a 4-way race. I mean, if the results goes Australia's way, Argentina can win this rugby championship, and they are here with a mission to win the rugby championship for the first time, just as we are. So it's going to be a humdinger of a game in terms of that. They're a passionate team like we are. They're playing for their country. They're playing for a rugby championship just like we are.
Jacques, arguably at the moment, because of sorry, am I stopping?
No, taking the time.
There's like a lot of external noise at the moment, and you've always spoken about how you like the players to be under pressure. So there's pressure on the players, obviously, because a lot of them are getting thrown into the deep end, and we're playing a sort of final on Saturday, as you say.
Yeah.
But and at the same time, you probably can't get worse than the nonsense that's sort of going on around, like, you know, on social media. Is there part of you that sort of almost like welcomes that, because it sort of you know, puts that whole sort of pressure thing, and if you get through this, you can sort of handle anything?
Yeah, look, the rugby pressure is always nice, because that's what you want. But the other pressure for me is almost disappointing. In terms of, because we know the truth, and we've put out a statement with the truth on it, and we always said, listen, we're going to be truthful, and we're going to. So if there's stuff that we can comment on, off the field stuff that's truthful, we will do that. We've got nothing to hide in terms of that. So it's almost, how can I say? It's almost irritating, that noise. I don't think one ever wants that type of pressure on your team, because it's got nothing to do with rugby. But we like the rugby pressure, and we like the fact that it's a final, and we like the fact that all 4 teams are still in it to win it. So I think it's going to have an exciting weekend of rugby championship. Yeah.
Mike?
Jacques, just a word on how Malcolm Marx is playing and his role leading from the front.
Yeah, no, listen, I think Malcolm's world class, and luckily, well, for us, we get Bongi back, so obviously he hasn't played for a couple of weeks, and but it's nice to almost have the bomb squad back together again, and hopefully building up some conditioning and some game time for Bongi coming back. We can hit the end of year tour with almost a bomb squad mentality again. But no, listen, Malcolm, excellent. He's put some big shifts in the last 2 games, and rightfully he was rewarded, I think, last week for the man of the match. I think, I'm not sure, I can't remember, but yes. So no, awesome. He's playing excellent rugby.
Jacques, that's an interesting discussion also as well as Malcolm in particular has played. The lineouts have been a bit of an issue, in terms of success rate, which hasn't always, put it like this: our standards in the lineout used to be, I don't think we're quite there yet. And are the lineouts a concern to you, or is it just something where the other teams are contesting particularly well and making it difficult?
Yeah, yes, I can't. I think we lost 2 lineouts on the weekend. I think we had 14 and we lost 2, and they're similar. I just think teams are contesting. I would lie if I give you the lineout stats. I'm not sure currently what it is in terms of our success rate.
Prior to the past weekend, it was 80%. So that's why I'm asking.
Oh yeah, no. Look, we look at it completely differently. So winning the lineout is one thing. So your stat of 80% is maybe one thing, but our stat, probably delivery, getting your plan, winning the ball is one thing, but getting to your plan is another thing. So we probably look at it more from that point of view. So that's why I don't even know what the success rate. But if you say 80%, it's 80%. But no, I didn't pick that up.
Jax from ESPN Argentina.
Yep.
What kind of match do you expect from Argentina, taking into account that you said it's a final of 4 teams and you're not putting South Africa and New Zealand one step ahead?
No. I think we're going to expect a test match, like a game from them in terms of good set pieces. I think they probably have one of the best lineouts in the competition. If you look at success rate, they've got a good maul, scored a couple of maul tries, good set piece. I thought they had our number in terms of from a scrum point of view. So it's something that we will have to work hard on. So Argentina are playing test match rugby, and that's why they are in with a shout. They had some good results. Australia, they've given 50 points. They've beaten New Zealand away from home for the first time. So they will be a tough team. I expect nothing more than a final from them.
Oh, well done, Mike.
Sorry, Jacques, just when the squad was announced to go over to Australia, they talked about the fact that it was going to be very much the sort of Australian-X squad, and that there could be room for change. But the only 2 players that were called up this week were Kirtley and Springboks, and obviously one of them was sort of injury enforced, and a couple of players going back to their franchises.
Yeah.
What's the message to the likes of an Evan Roos, for example, Ronald Kerr, players who were left behind and haven't really had an opportunity to come back? And was it necessitated by the fact that the rugby championship has gone down to the last game, and that it is a final this weekend? You can't really afford to not play anything but your best team.
Yeah, obviously we went over to Australia with a mindset of getting and not being arrogant. Just our plan was to get a victory in Adelaide and get a victory in Sydney, and that would have changed. That would have given us the opportunity to be a little bit more creative in terms of squad and team selection. And again, that was the broader outlook for us. And we explain it to the players like that. So I think if you go to any of those players that you've mentioned now, if you go to any of those players now, they will probably tell you they will I've got no doubt in my head that they would say that to you, that listen, that was the plan, but when we lost the first game against Australia, it kind of changed what we had to do. Obviously, like I say, we want to get some experience and exposure to our broader group, but we always, but never at the cost of performance. So yeah, that's unfortunately how it panned out. But in saying that, they also know that on the end of year tour, we've got 4 test matches, there's SAA games lined up. We'll probably go with a squad from close to 50. So there is another opportunity for everyone to get game time again. And I think the squad that we took to Australia and then played through in the Argentinian games, we gave everybody an opportunity. Unfortunately, some of them only got limited minutes, but that's just how it panned out.
Jock, it's probable, or at least extremely possible, that you're going to have to score a lot of points on Saturday to win the rugby championship. How do you approach the game with sort of that in mind? You obviously don't want to get too frantic and end up sort of giving the counter-attacking opportunities, but how would you approach it if you have to score a lot of points?
No, yeah, yes. Again, I don't even want to think that, Mike. I think it will be completely disrespectful to Argentina. Like I say, they probably sitting there and say, listen, I hope Australia gets a job done on New Zealand, and that gives us an opportunity to win the rugby championship for the first time in our career, you know. So we don't even think of that. We just focus on, listen, it's going to be a final, like a World Cup final. That's what it would be, and it's going to start out like that, and we just focus on that. And we will think about other things other than that later. But the first thing for us is, listen, as we are sitting here, Argentina is also sitting there and thinking, listen, we can win this thing. And Australia is thinking, yes, we can win this thing, you know. And New Zealand is thinking the same. So I think for us, don't get too carried away about results and what can happen and what you should do. We'll get to that point when the how can I say, when the facts are on the table. But currently we're just thinking of, listen, first kick-off, where will it be? If they kick on us, what will their strategy be? Yeah.
Along those lines, though, is it helpful that the other games, that the other games happening earlier than yours, so that you do know what you can write thing on the blackboard like educated ones?
Yeah, I think both for both us and Argentina.
Yeah.
We will have we would both know what we need to do to get a victory or to win the rugby championship. Yeah, so it does help us. Yeah.
Jax, did the performance of Argentina, I don't know if surprised you or was a very difficult game? South Africa, as we talked the other day, hit harder in the moments that the game was getting very tough, but this is probably the most competitive or one of the most challenging rugby championship. What do you think about this Argentinian success, taking into account that maybe this is the first time that they can get this tournament?
No, I think not surprising, I would say, at all. If you look at the experience of that Argentinian side, yes, I think if you go the locks, 70 plus test matches, front row, 50 plus. I mean, they're a very experienced side, so they know what test match rugby is about. And obviously, they're building to a World Cup. They've got a good coaching staff. They've got good plans. They've got good skill set. They can operate under pressure. They're a physical side. So I think we got exactly what we expected from Argentina, especially in that second half. We obviously knew. We spoke about it at halftime. Listen, they're a team that never goes away. Up to the 80th minute, they will play. Doesn't matter what the scoreboard is, because they're pride. They're a team that's proud, you know. So yeah, I expect the same from them this week.
Jacques, how concerned are you about the officiating? The reason I ask is that we saw in the Australia-New Zealand game that last 6 minutes and what transpired in that game, in your game, there were 34 penalties awarded. And in a key game, the last thing you want is for a match official to have a decision that will influence their direction of not only a game, but a championship.
Yeah, look, the best thing there is we just trust the officiating. We trust them. I mean, just they, like we are sifting and getting answers in terms of players. I'm sure World Rugby is doing the same with the officials, handing them high pressure games to see if they can handle that. And we must just trust that process.
Jacques, we've seen the home test have been so well supported this year. How exciting is it coming to Durban, playing in front of a sold-out Kings Park?
No, yes, very excited. I don't think I've ever, in all my years, have been at a Kings Park that was completely sold out. I'm not, me personally. So I'm kind of, for my personally, I'm looking forward to it. But obviously the players as well. And we just hope, we're going to do everything in our power to put up a proper performance, to thank them, and we believe that if our performance is of a high quality, it might put us in a position to win the game, and then if things go our way, we might be able to win the rugby championship.
Jacques, there's some rain predicted for this weekend as well as Saturday. How does this alter your game plan going into the game?
Sorry, there is some
rain predicted for this weekend.
Yeah, no, I haven't looked at the forecast yet, but obviously we will get some nice opportunity today to train in that. Yes, if there's rain, you'll have to adapt a little bit in terms of how you approach the game. But like we have shown in the past, even if you look back, semi-final World Cup to the final in the World Cup, we have the ability to make small little changes within our game plan to hopefully get us required results.
Just on that, the weather, I don't think it's actually going to be like one of those days where it's really bad, like in 1995 in the semi-final. But if it is bad, I mean, France is actually quite a good weather fly half, isn't it? I mean, it's almost like a guy you'd want there in that situation.
Yeah, and again, his experience, he's played here before. He played for the Sharks before. He knows the stadium quite well. And yeah, no, definitely, I would think if it is a wet weather game, he's a nice guy to have in your team.
Does that also influence the selection of?
Can we go to Mike Busy that is hand on first?
Sorry, no.
Did that also influence the selection of a Jaden at 9, because he's also a person who actually has played the bulk of his formative rugby in Durban? Because again, he's another player who can, when needed, also be able to debutise at 10.
I think Jaden is just our informed. He's been putting up really good performance for us in the last couple of weeks, and like Faf had an opportunity against New Zealand, and unluckily he got knocked out within the first 45 seconds, and then Jaden got an opportunity there, really put in a solid performance, and he's almost then. He got, I won't say stuck, but he almost cemented himself there, and he's put in good performances ever since then. Yeah, so his selection was, like I said, probably our best fit, in form, available side. That's what we went for.
Talk us to the return of Kurt Lee, because with the 6-2 split, you find yourself that in the event of a touch which doesn't happen, you've got key injuries in midfield. So how important does Kurt Lee's return to the team come, especially when you have a player like Caden who's also able to debutise at 13?
Yeah, no, Kurt Lee, yes, he served his ban. Otherwise, he would have been part of us straight through the whole rugby championship if there wasn't injuries to him. But we are. It's nice for us to get him back. He's a quality player. He can cover you at fullback. He can cover you at wing. So he's nice and versatile in terms of that.
Any other questions, guys? No?
Sorry, Jacques, just one more. We're about a year out from the World Cup, and
Yep.
you sort of mentioned the fact that we could have a squad up to 50 players at the end of the year.
Yep.
Quite a few injuries this year, so quite a lot of different players have come in and out. What do you think we've got a good idea of the core of the squad? What's sort of been your message to some of the sort of fringe players who maybe just return and have a captain and stuff like that? What's been your message to them as they sort of go out to the URC teams or Wales teams over the to try and get their way into that France squad?
Yeah, I think I've mentioned it before. Like you guys know, we do performance analysis on players. So that Cebu on the weekend. So we were actually busy with our pre-match mobility where the game was on, and then obviously with the technology these days, you have the game coded available hours just after the game. So for us the players know it. The players that's in our squad, they know we call them roadmaps, the performance analysis side or how can I say, the performance measurement on the players. And with the alignment camps, they have a pretty good idea what we want them to achieve, and their job is just to make sure that they achieve it. So to answer your question on that, we will probably do roadmaps on a player once every month. So and we call it roadmaps, where we give him a rating on his different areas. And that is a roadmap how to become a Springbok. So they have a very good idea of where they are and which areas they have to work on. And we will sit down and have one-on-ones with them with Zoom these days. Or not Zoom, with Microsoft Teams. It's easy to sit down and be in a player's living room, and go through clips in detail and tell him where do you see him currently. Yeah. So no. They've got we keep in touch with them on a weekly basis, and there just hasn't been games yet, but we will now. Yeah.
So that process happen throughout the rest of the domestic season, so the URC and stuff like that.
Yes, and again, the players must know that they take ownership of their career. A player's, how can I say, a player who's not in our squad, it's his career. He must take ownership of it. It's not the coach's responsibility to take ownership of his career. It's his career. He must take ownership of it. If there's any queries, and the players know that, they contact us and they're good with that, and they say, listen, please have a look at my defense, or please have a look at my aerial contesting, or please have a look at my scrums, or line out, or setting maul, or whatever detail they want to go into. They just contact the coaches and say, please, I'm struggling maybe a little bit with that, do you have some feedback? And again, we work closely there with the franchises, because sometimes there's some how can I say, tactical differences or technical differences between how we approach a breakdown to what the Bulls or the Sharks approach a breakdown, and that's awesome. Just as long as the player and his local franchise coach are aligned. But yeah, we keep in touch with them regularly.
Last question, Gavin, and then we wrap up.
Cool. Jacques, you made me just think of it now when you mentioned the players going off to the URC and that. You guys are in a very sort of difficult position, because you sort of playing rugby championship with the Southern Hemisphere international season. But we're now aligned to the north, and all your players, even your players who aren't playing URC for South African franchises, are all northern based as well. I mean, how problematic is that going to be, and how are you going to get around that going forward? Because I mean, we're in a situation where Stephen Kitsoff, for instance, hasn't had a break since the URC final, and now the Stormers are training again and going back in. I mean, how are you going to deal with that?
Yeah, I think it's something that we'll have to manage. I think the local guys, obviously my players, their contracts, I think they've got a cap on the amount of games that they can play during a season. So obviously between us, we try and manage them as much as possible. If you think about that's probably the beauty we have in terms of the bomb squad. So if you look at the games or the rugby exposure that our players get, especially you mentioned Stephen Kitsoff now, it's probably half of the exposure that other props would get, just because we're fortunate that we have an Ox there. But other guys, obviously between us and the franchises, we would like to manage their load. And if you think in 2022, if you think a guy like Peter Steff now, he hasn't played for 2 weeks. If you think what we did in the Wales, the second test match, we almost rotated the whole squad, So we try and manage the game load from a national point of view, but again, and hopefully not to the detriment of the squad and performance. But yeah, it's something that we try and manage as best as we can.